Everybody wants to make $20,000 a month, but you can't get to job 50 until you get to job 1. So let's talk about the first step. I know the pressure of getting that first job can be really scary, but with the right approach, you can do it. We've done a series of videos on how to make $20,000 a month. We have covered how to manage your cost of goods sold and how to manage your marketing. In this video, we're gonna cover how to get your very first job. It is tempting to build your business plan and just become a spreadsheet millionaire. What I wanna help you do is actually put everything into action and start building revenue. I would encourage you to get multiple jobs, not just one, but let's break that down. As I've alluded to in other videos, the first job I got, I actually lost money. This is because I was trying to find the market. I was trying to find my pricing. I was trying to find the sweet spot so I could get the most value to my customer and I could get the most value for my company. One of the ways you can find the market, find the pricing, is do some mock-up jobs with the contractors or the labor that you're gonna be using. Use your own house or use the apartment you're living in or find a friend or a neighbor. But you can do some mock-up jobs to figure out exactly where you need to be to make sure you're covering all your labor, covering all your materials, and you don't actually have to do the painting, but you just do a mock-up. You do a fake job. You're setting it up, go through the exact process you would go through, but you're actually not exchanging any money. And I would encourage you to do this with multiple crews. If you're starting out, you may only have one crew. I would encourage you to have more than one. That can be a little bit of a juggling act because you want to try to keep everyone busy, but it's not good to be pinned in just to one person. So I would go through this exercise with multiple crews so you can see, is this crew going to be better or is this crew going to be cheaper? So you can kind of play around and see, why are they cheaper? Are they just charging more? Or are they actually better? And you can find what fits your company the best. This is an easy, low risk way to get started. And it should only take a day. Don't take 2 weeks doing this. Get out there, knock it out, move fast so you can get to the revenue making part of your business. Once you've run some experiments, now you can get out and start talking to your customers. Refer back to the marketing video on how to get your first customer. I highly recommend utilizing lead generation, company/services. This is a great way to catch some quick momentum. Again, go back and review my marketing video where I go into more detail about that. As a reminder, it may not be the best quality leads, but it's gonna get you some action, it's gonna get you some momentum, and then you can start refining which lead sources work the best. But let me tell you, I've used them and I still use them. They generate hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so you can definitely use them. Don't fall into the trap, well, they're just not good, they're bad quality, that's why I'm not being successful. That is a lie that you're telling yourself because I know dozens and dozens and dozens of companies that use these all the time, including myself. You can make them work. So if you can make those work, you'll be able to make the other stuff that's higher quality work even better. All right, so let's talk about the customer experience. Let's talk about how we set up the lead so that the customer has a good experience. You need to make sure that you have a clear process. It needs to be documented well. This process will evolve over time, but you definitely need to have a process and you need to document what that process is so you can refine it and make changes. Some people will use an actual script when they get someone on the phone and they'll run through the script. I don't prefer that. I don't like working off a script. I'd rather have bullet points and just make sure I cover all the bullet points. And if you're offering basically the same service to a bunch of different people, you'll kind of know what you need to say and you'll get into a rhythm and a flow. And so that's my preferred method. I know people use a script and they follow that. Personally, I think the most natural way to do it is use bullet points and just kind of freestyle and answer the questions as they're coming. It just makes it more conversational. It makes the customer feel like they're having a conversation and not just being talked to. Again, the bullet points will make sure that you cover the most important things. So definitely have notes, and it doesn't have to be a word thing. I have my computer sitting right here doing this video. So I always have notes or something to reference to make sure I cover all of the important things. Important things that I always make sure that I confirm. I want to make sure I got their contact information. I want to make sure that we confirm the date, that we have a reminder set up for that appointment. I want to make sure that they know the service that we're offering, especially using lead generation companies. Someone might think that you offer, and so you need to confirm that you actually offer the service that they're wanting. And then you also want to make sure that you have a telephone number and email address. If you can't get the basic information, then it's probably not going to be a good lead that's going to convert well. I won't go to a customer's home if I don't have their contact information. I don't have any way to follow up with them and make sure that they're in our pipeline if I don't have all their accurate information. If I look at my calendar and I see someone on my calendar and I don't have their contact information, I will not go to the appointment. Obviously, I'll have my team reach out and we'll have a process for that, but I am not going to someone's home for an estimate if I don't have all of the necessary information to put them into my funnel. Because this is a great time to start a slow drip. And what does that mean? We are going to slowly start giving them all the information they need. People forget things. And so I will literally tell a customer all the things that they need to know. And 2 seconds later, they'll be like, well, what about this? And I just told them that. I just went through the whole process, but they're asking, do y'all do this? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I'm not rude and be like, I just told you that. I tell them, I say, yes, absolutely. We'll take care of X, Y, Z. And so you're just reinforcing that every time, because sometimes when you're talking, they're doing something else or they're thinking about something else. And so it's always good to give the important information multiple times. Here's an example. So when I talk to the customer, I'm going to say something like this. Hey, when I come out, it's only a 30-minute appointment. I'm not going to take a bunch of your time. I'm going to give you a verbal price when I'm there. I'm also going to send you a written estimate, but keep in mind, there's no money up front, so I'm not going to try to do a hard close or collect any money. That's a great way to communicate some basic information. For one, we're not going to take up a bunch of their time. And then also, we're not going to try to collect a check. And we're planting that seed of there's no money up front. There's no deposit. We don't take any money until the job's 100% done. That's a slow drip in the funnel. We're building credibility. And when the other people talk, they're going to be like, well, it's a 90-minute estimate. And if you sign up the day that we're there, we're going to give you a discount, all this different stuff. We're going to give them the same discount, but we're just going to give it to them for 2 weeks. And so we are setting up a better funnel than hopefully our competitors are, and we're offering the same or better value. Hey, just a quick pause. Thanks for watching. I'm Adam Robinson. I run the Dyslexic Hustle. If you want to support us, please subscribe. After you meet with the customer, make sure there's a clear process on following up with the customer. If the customer doesn't approve the job on the spot, make sure there's a clear expectation of when you're going to follow up. Now, I don't do a hard close. I'm not collecting a deposit, but I am presenting a price. And some customers will say, yeah, let's go ahead and get that scheduled. And so there is a possibility, and a pretty good possibility, that they'll go ahead and give you the go ahead right then. But most of our jobs don't close on the spot. So you definitely need a good follow-up process. Text, email, phone calls. You need to have a follow-up process. This is hugely important. As you're building out your system, you should be reaching out to the customer until they respond. If they don't tell you no, there's still a possibility. I've had customers come back a year later, 2 years later. Now, we're not calling that customer every day, but we're putting them on a slow drip. We're emailing them once a month, maybe every other month. We have a sequence that we follow to make sure the customer knows, hey, we're still here. We're still willing. We're still ready. Let us know when you're ready. We're not beating on their door every day, but we are letting them know that we appreciate them and we're ready to serve them and give them the services that they need. Once they have given you their response, then you can set up your follow-up accordingly. If they tell you they're going to try to make a decision over the weekend, make sure you're calling them Monday morning. You're the first person when they pick up their phone, they see a text message, they see an email, or their phone rings and it's your name that pops up. Make make it personal and say, hey, I know that you were trying to make a decision over the weekend. Just wanted to follow up and see if you had any questions, if you were ready to get your project scheduled. You're being very relational in the conversation. You don't have a real rigid script that you're sticking to, but you're making sure that you're covering all of the bullet points. Hey, did you have any questions? I'd love to be able to work with you. And you just kind of feel it out. Some people like to chat. Some people are doing 1,000 things and they don't want to be on the phone a bunch. So they may not even answer the call. They may just do all their communication through email or text. If you're not texting, you are missing out. Most people don't check email. I don't check email. And so if you're not texting people, you're missing opportunities. With that said, use every form of communication that you can, because some people still use email. Some people prefer the phone, but I will follow up with a customer till I die or they say no. If you don't get the job, try to get some feedback. We actually have some automated emails and text messages that go out. We want to try to get some feedback so we can see where we need to improve. Did I do a bad job? Did I stumble? Did I not give them all the information? Was the estimate sloppy? Was the estimate not comprehensive? Or was it just price? You won't get every job. You'll look at the feedback that you're getting and you can make adjustments. So if you're not getting any jobs, you either need to do a better job of making a presentation or you need to adjust your pricing. And you might just need to adjust your pricing so you can catch some momentum and then get some bills paid, and then you can start raising your pricing as you start to refine your system. But you just want to get some traction so then you can start making some adjustments. In some cases, there's just nothing you can do. You're just not going to get the job. It's probably a budget thing. You don't always want to be the cheapest person, but if you're always the most expensive, you might need to lower your prices until you refine that process. Again, if you're still refining your process and you're learning how to sell and how to communicate, you might need to lower your prices, because the reality is that you're still learning. And so it makes sense that you don't make as much as a seasoned professional. And so as you start to get better and your business model is better and your systems are better and your brand is better, then you can start charging more. A little bit of something is better than nothing. All right, let's talk about project fulfillment. How do you get the job done? When you get your first job, it's still really important that you're communicating well and you have a good system in place so the customer has a good experience. The operations, the fulfillment of the project is one of the most important aspects of the business. If you cannot deliver a turnkey experience, you may start to build a bad reputation, which is actually going to hurt you even more, because not only are you trying to learn marketing, but you also got bad reviews that you're trying to combat at the same time. As a general rule, marketing will not overcome a bad reputation or a bad experience, because you're just getting more people to come to your business and then they're going to go tell everyone else how terrible your business is. You would be better off if you were anonymous and no one knew who you were. If you have a bad hamburger, you don't need more people, you need a better hamburger, then you need more people. There needs to be clear communication about the project. There needs to be clear communication on what to expect in the project, when it's going to start, when are the guys going to show up, when is it going to be finished. All these things help the customer experience. One thing that I've learned is giving a general outline of what the experience is going to be like is often better than giving a very detailed outline, because you might have some variances between crews, and especially if you're doing home services, every home's a little different, so it might vary a little bit, and you don't want to set an expectation and then don't fulfill that expectation. You want to give a general outline of the expectations and stay within those parameters. This is different than a franchise model where everyone is working off a PDF and everything is followed to a T. The franchise model obviously works in a lot of industries, but I have just found that when you're running a smaller home service business, you definitely want to have process, you want to have SOPs, but they need to be general, and you need to understand who you're working with and who you're working for and what you're doing. If you're making making a hamburger, everything's right there. You're in a controlled environment. You have an assembly line. You can do all the things that need to be done. But when you're on a house and there's little nuances that are different, it's just going to be harder to follow a printed out PDF unless you have a supervisor on site that you are paying to enforce your processes, which is also going to increase your costs, and it's just going to make it more expensive and probably a lot more headaches because the customer now has this expectation. You hand them a PDF and this is what we do on every home and this is exactly how it works. And then the customer looks at it and it's like, well, they skipped number 5C, and then there's this tension and the customer's upset. So giving a general outline, you're going back to our principles, our 4 pillars. We set the dream outcome and the likelihood of achieving the dream outcome. And then we're going to tell them, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And when we're done, we're going to deliver the key things that we told you the key things that we said we would do are going to be completed, and we're going to give you an excellent finished product. So on that general outline, here's an example of what I do. So when I'm talking to a customer about what to expect when we get on site, I'm going to say something like this. We're going to pressure wash. We're going to scrape, sand, putty, caulk. We're going to do all of the prep work needed so that we can make sure the paint adheres properly. That is a great outline of what's going to be done, and I'll also add in as necessary, and that's actually on our estimates too, because some homes don't need certain things, and so there may be a home that doesn't need a lot of sanding or a lot of scraping. Maybe it just needs a little bit, and if they're looking at a PDF or something that is very, very specific, they may be like, well, it doesn't seem like they spent a lot of time doing X, Y, Z. Well, it's like a lot of that wasn't needed, and so if you're being good in your communication and you're just saying, hey, this is the general things that we're doing. We're going to make sure I'm the professional. I know what needs to be done. You're not necessarily saying that, but you're setting that expectation as I'm the professional. I'm the teacher. I'm telling you what needs to be done, and we're going to do the things that need to be done. But that also requires there being some trust and a little bit of confidence that you're going to do what you said. And that's where all those other things are reinforcing you as the expert and you being the teacher in the process. We just covered multiple different steps in the process. In all of these stages, you want to make sure that you're documenting what you're doing so you can go back and see what is working and what is not working. If you don't have a consistent process, it's going to be hard to know what is working and what is not working. Even if you're not sure how you're going to utilize all the data and the processes that you're documenting, I personally have found that later on I can go back and utilize that data, and it paints a beautiful picture of what is working and what is not working, and I can make some adjustments to make the business thrive. Everything you're doing today will tell a story to your future self. You only need one job to prove to yourself that this can work. So stay consistent and you will find that it works well. If you are serious about building a business, the challenge for today is to get that first job, just that one. Remember, this is not about landing the first perfect job. It's about learning fast and adjusting even faster. Keep your eyes open and keep moving. Now that you know how to get your first job, check out some of our other videos that will teach you how to make money, how to make a profit on those jobs. Because revenue without profit is just stress.